Dawn breaks over a windswept plain. You're not wearing deodorant. No one is. You're crouched near a smoldering fire in a mammoth-hide cloak, chewing on some mystery meat, when you glance across the flames and lock eyes with someone who might just make the winter a little more bearable. No pickup lines, no roses. Just a stone tool, a half-dead rabbit, and the faint hope they don't already have a mate, or worse, a jealous one. Flirting didn't begin with Shakespeare or rom-coms. It started long before the invention of riding, agriculture, or pants. Today, we're going back, way back, to ask, how did cavemen actually flirt? There's no such thing as playing the field when the field is 10 square meters of dirt. Your entire social circle fits around a campfire and half of them are your cousins. Early human societies rolled in small, tightly knit bands, roughly 20 to 40 people, give or take a few hyena attacks. Think less bachelor pad and more extended family reunion with spears. You lived together, hunted together, foraged together, and if someone in the group was annoying, you still had to pass them the roasted roots. Privacy didn't exist. Everyone knew who was pairing off, who was fighting, and who accidentally burned the meat last night. These groups were surprisingly chill. No kings, no bosses, just a loose sense of cooperation where the best hunter didn't get a crown, but probably got the biggest piece of mammoth steak, and a little more attention around the fire. Everything was shared: food, fire, shelter, childcare, stories, jokes, and probably the occasional lice comb. But love? That was trickier. Romance wasn't some grand private affair. It was a group event, and the pool of options was limited. You weren't exactly swiping. You were scanning the camp for someone who A, wasn't already paired up, B, wasn't directly related to you, and C, still had all their teeth. So you waited for the rare intergroup gathering, a seasonal migration crossover, a big cooperative hunt, or a ritual feast. Basically, the prehistoric version of speed dating, except everyone was covered in mud and carrying a weapon. And then it would happen. You'd spot someone unfamiliar across the fire circle, wearing a necklace made of snail shells, laughing too loud at someone's joke, and think, whoa, nice bone structure, sturdy hands. I could definitely raise a mammoth or 6 with them. Cave walls weren't just prehistoric Pinterest boards. They were full-blown social media feeds, broadcasts in charcoal and ochre. You had handprints, the Paleolithic selfie, hunting scenes, flexing your skills, and abstract symbols, probably the first cryptic relationship posts. These weren't just doodles. They were status updates, manifestos, and yes, flirting tools. Sure, art served spiritual and communal functions. Maybe it was part of a ritual. Maybe it helped teach the younglings what not to hunt. But let's be honest, part of it was just pure, unfiltered Stone Age swagger. You painted on a wall because you wanted people to know you were here, and that you could draw a very accurate bison from memory. And then there was body art. Red ochre smeared across your face wasn't just decoration, it was prehistoric makeup. Some early humans even painted their teeth. That's right, tooth bling, tens of thousands of years before grills. Adornments mattered too. Shell necklaces, peak Stone Age drip, beads made of animal bone or teeth. You just told the group, I fought something with fangs and made jewelry out of its face. Total power move. And those carved ivory Venus figurines? They might have been spiritual icons, fertility symbols, or ancient self-portraits, but they were also very likely prehistoric fan art. Think of them as Paleolithic crush tokens. Hey, I made this wildly exaggerated statue of you. You're welcome. These personal flourishes weren't just for show. They sent a signal. I have enough resources, security, and free time to make things that aren't food or weapons. I'm stable. I'm skilled. I'm culturally aware. I might even listen when you talk. In a world where survival was hard and free time was rare, art and self-expression were romantic green flags. If someone could make paint, carve bone, and tie a symmetrical bead pattern, they weren't just attractive. They were emotionally available with creative hobbies. irresistible. Long before slow dances, club playlists, and bad karaoke duets that somehow become first-date traditions, there were fire circles, the original nightlife. Picture this. Twilight settles over the plains. The hunt is done, bellies are full, and the danger of the day, saber-toothed cats, surprise snakes, starvation, has passed. A ring of flickering firelight casts dancing shadows across the dirt. Bones have been carved into flutes, logs tapped into crude drums, sticks shaken for rhythm. Someone with a good sense of timing and just enough charisma starts to play, and the others? They follow. Feet stomp, hands slap, voices chant. A beat begins. This wasn't just noise, it was ritual, release, and romance. Early music wasn't entertainment the way we know it. It was social glue, a way to connect with others through rhythm and movement. To move together in time was to feel part of something, a group, a rhythm, maybe even the beginnings of a relationship. And then came the dancing. We're not talking tick-tock choreo. We're talking raw, full-body movement. Hips swaying, shoulders rolling, feet pounding into the earth. This was a mating display with extra steps. Literally. Like birds ruffling their feathers or peacocks flaunting their tails, humans showed off their strength, coordination, and endurance through movement. Because let's be real, if you could still dance after a full day of sprinting through tall grass, dodging stampeding aurochs, and hauling back 40 pounds of roasted root vegetables, you were basically a total catch. And this wasn't just about showing off. It was interactive. You danced with someone, mirrored their steps, matched their rhythm, maybe exchanged glances between spins. It was the original flirtation. No words needed. Was it sexy? Absolutely. Was it sweaty? Even more so. There's a decent chance twerking was invented 30,000 years ago in some form. In Paleolithic terms, handing someone a roasted squirrel leg was basically the equivalent of swiping right and offering to split your Netflix password. It wasn't just about calories, it was a gesture with meaning. I hunt, I gather, I provide. And I picked you to share it with. That's romance? Let's talk about the elephant, or rather, the cousin in the room. Early humans weren't just wandering through life like, oops, I guess we're related. They may not have had family trees neatly drawn on cave walls, but they definitely understood the concept of too close for comfort. Modern genetic studies of ancient human remains show something remarkable. These early communities actively avoided inbreeding. Somehow, in a world without last names, DNA tests, or awkward family reunions, our ancestors figured out who not to flirt with, and they took it seriously. And we're not talking about casual oversight. The level of genetic diversity found in Paleolithic bands suggests intentional planning. It was social strategy meets survival instinct. Mix the gene pool or risk the consequences. Poor health, deformities, or entire bloodlines getting weaker with each generation. So how did they do it? They got social. They formed connections between bands, building extended networks across landscapes, and that meant walking, a lot, sometimes tens or even hundreds of miles, not for trade, not for conquest, but for love. Okay, and maybe a good mammoth hunt. It's why courtship rituals likely bloomed during intergroup gatherings. These weren't just parties, they were full-on social mixers. Imagine shared feasts, group hunts, ritual dances, and communal storytelling. You'd meet new people, swap resources, and most importantly, spot someone across the fire who definitely wasn't your cousin. Win. These events were basically the Paleolithic version of destination weddings, only instead of floral arrangements and open bars, you had animal hides, fermented berries, and a background chorus of wolves. But the vibe? Still there. You showed up cleanish, maybe adorned with some fresh ochre, hoping to make a connection and not go home alone with your dried roots. And this cross-band mixing wasn't just romantic, it was political. Forming a bond with someone outside your group created alliances, networks, and a backup plan in case your camp's food ran out. Marrying or mating across groups meant more than companionship. It meant survival insurance. So no, cavemen weren't clueless. They weren't pairing off with siblings and shrugging it off. They had a sense of social memory, environmental awareness, and kinship structure that helped them navigate the complexities of early life. Because in a world where disease, injury, and predators were a daily threat, the biggest danger was genetic stagnation. And the best way to prevent it? A well-timed feast, a bit of dancing, and not flirting with your uncle's daughter? The environment wasn't just a backdrop. It played wingman, matchmaker, and relationship therapist all rolled into one. In rich, fertile regions, slush river valleys, temperate forests, coastal zones bursting with shellfish and sunshine, life was a little easier. Not easy, mind you. This was still a world where stepping on a snake could end your whole career, but the basics of survival were more manageable. Food was more abundant, weather was less punishing, and that gave people something rare: time. And when you've got time, you start doing other things, like dancing, or carving elaborate beads, or making your version of mixtape art on a cave wall. People in these fertile zones could flirt with flair, showing off creativity, stamina, and humor, because they weren't constantly dodging death every 20 minutes. There was space for beauty, romance, connection. But move into the harsher climates, the ice-covered steppes, the dry highlands, the bone-rattling wind tunnels of the north, and the vibe changes fast. Suddenly, courtship gets practical. You don't care how good someone's cave painting is if they can't tan a hide without it turning into a moldy mess. There are no long, romantic walks under the stars when wolves are out and your feet are frozen. Love in these places wasn't about butterflies. It was about whether the person beside you could keep the fire from going out at 3 a.m. Because when the stakes are that high, survival is seduction. You weren't looking for someone with nice hair. You were looking for someone who could field dress a caribou in under 10 minutes, build a wind-bluking shelter from nothing but sticks and nerve, ration dried fish like a pro, and maybe fight off a snow leopard if things got weird. In these regions, romantic potential was measured in competence. Who knew how to smoke meat properly? Who could find dry kindling after a blizzard? Who could sew a pair of fur boots that didn't fall apart mid-migration? Because nothing says lifelong mate like watching someone gut a reindeer with expert precision, hands steady, eyes calm, while your fingers are too numb to undo your belt pouch. But here's the thing. That kind of practicality was romantic. It meant dependability, reliability, a partner who had your back when the mammoth dung hit the fan. And in those climates, that kind of security didn't just mean a better night's sleep. It meant your actual odds of survival went up. So whether it was sunny coastal courtship with music and makeup, or tundra-tested love built on grit and dried fish, the environment shaped the love story. It whispered what was attractive, what was essential, and who you stood closest to when the wind howled loudest. We weren't always monogamous. In fact, for most of our evolutionary journey, early humans were probably flexible with their mating strategies. Some relationships were short-term, others lasted through a season, a migration, or until someone got clubbed by a falling tree. Commitment wasn't carved in stone, it was carved in how useful, trustworthy, or available you were at any given moment. But something shifted. At some point, evolution nudged us, not toward fairy tale romance, but toward pair bonding, a slow, steady tilt toward longer-term relationships. Why? Because humans did something incredibly inconvenient for any species trying to survive in a dangerous world. We started having babies that were basically potatoes. Tiny, soft, screaming potatoes that couldn't walk, talk, or fend off a single predator. Unlike antelope or gazelles that pop out running, human babies were absurdly high maintenance. They needed years of constant care just to not wander into a bear den or choke on a rock. And that meant someone had to stick around, preferably two someones. Enter the emotional glue. Pair bonding wasn't about exclusivity, it was about logistics. It was a survival upgrade. A two-person parenting system that gave Homo sapiens a fighting chance in a world full of teeth, cold nights, and angry weather. One person could gather food while the other kept the fire going and made sure Junior didn't fall into the river. Division of labor became a love language. And this wasn't just a temporary arrangement. Evolution began favoring individuals who could form longer-term emotional attachments. Partners who weren't just sexually attracted, but also trusted each other, relied on each other, maybe even liked each other. That emotional closeness you feel, the longing, the cuddles, the pit in your stomach when someone you care about walks away, that's not just drama, it's an adaptation. The result of thousands of generations of selection for bonds that stuck. Feelings became function. So yes, long before Valentine's Day, Spotify breakup playlists, and couples therapy, early humans were already emotionally entangled. Not because love is fluffy or weak, but because love, in all its raw, messy, complex glory, was one of the best survival strategies our species ever invented. Deal with it. So what does all of this mean for us, the modern romantics navigating brunch dates, dating apps, awkward small talk, and group chats full of red flag warnings? It means we've changed a lot, and barely at all. Sure, we have emojis now, Wi-Fi, coffee shops with moody lighting and overpriced lattes, but when you strip away the filters, the tech, the endless scrolling, we're still doing what our ancestors did around firelight and mammoth bones. We still give gifts, though now it's concert tickets, cocktails, or sharing your HBO password instead of offering someone a roasted squirrel or a really nice flint knife. We still laugh to connect, because a sense of humor is still one of the best ways to say, I'm safe, I'm clever, and I probably won't let you die in a snowstorm. Playfulness still builds trust. Charm still breaks the ice. We still decorate ourselves, whether it's with jewelry, tattoos, contouring, or just a shirt that says, I thought about this outfit longer than I'll admit. We still signal fertility, strength, status, or stability through how we move, how we talk, how we present. We still dance, whether it's at weddings, clubs, or swaying a little too hard at your cousin's barbecue. We still flirt with food, inviting someone out to eat, splitting dessert, making eye contact over a plate of fries. We still try to impress with the things we've made. Now it's playlists and photography instead of spearheads and ivory carvings, but the intention is the same. Even the ways we bond, the small shared rituals of trust and affection, mirror ancient patterns. Holding hands, leaning in, watching someone laugh and thinking, I could survive an ice age with this person. Because underneath all the modern gloss, we're still wired by the same code. We're still the product of ancestors who had to make it work in the dirt and danger of the world, who had to pick partners not just for attraction but for endurance, loyalty, skill. We're still shaped by the same forces that turned food sharing into affection and music into mating displays. The tools are smarter. The signals are shinier. The bios are shorter thank you character limits. But the instinct, the impulse to connect, to impress, to bond, to build something bigger than yourself with someone else, that's ancient. So, the next time you nervously choose an outfit for a first date, agonize over how to text back, or get butterflies when someone smiles just right, remember, this is your heritage. You are the descendant of people who flirted with body paint, who wooed with carved beads and well-cooked rodents, who caught feelings under starlit skies without ever needing a playlist to explain it. And that's kind of beautiful, because love, however weird, awkward, chaotic, or swipe-based it becomes, is one of the most deeply human things we do. Firelight, or phone light, we're still trying to make that spark. Cavemen flirted the only way they knew how, through food, fire, rhythm, and risk. Their courtship rituals were rough around the edges, more can you tan this hide with me than can I buy you a drink, but they got the job done. There were no pickup lines, no texting back after 3 hours to play it cool, no agonizing over the perfect emoji, just real-time signals, gifts of meat, shared warmth, coordinated movements around a dance circle, and the occasional carved necklace made from bare teeth. It was messy. It was heartfelt. It was strategic. And yet, sometimes it was probably hilarious. A misjudged offering, a mistimed grunt. That one guy who definitely misread the vibe and ended up with a spear butt to the face. But through trial, error, and evolution, our ancestors figured out how to make emotional connections in a world with no script and far fewer second chances. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. Because here we are, tens of thousands of years later, still trying to get each other's attention, still giving gifts, telling stories, laughing at jokes, and hoping someone will sit close to us by the metaphorical or actual fire. We're still sharing food to build intimacy, still dressing up to signal worth, still performing in subtle and not so subtle ways, hoping someone notices. Romance, it turns out, is older than writing, older than farming, older than shame. It's built into the very bones of what it means to be human. It's the emotional scaffolding that held our ancestors together through ice ages, migrations, and saber-toothed chaos. It's why your heart beats faster when someone brushes your hand. It's why you spend too long crafting a message that just says, "Hey." So the next time someone hits on you awkwardly, fumbling their words, making a weird joke, or nervously complimenting your shoes, just smile. Because at least they didn't throw a half-dead rabbit at your feet and grunt meaningfully. We've evolved, but not that much. And honestly, that's kind of beautiful.